Well, I guess my story started about 29 years ago. I wasn't feeling well physically, and I went to a couple of doctors, and they really couldn't find what was wrong. So I found a doctor, and he eventually told me after a couple of visits that he thought I had depression. And I remember going home that night and thinking, gosh, how can I have depression? You know, I don't feel blue, I don't feel sad. But I went ahead, I think it was Prozac that he gave me, and I took it and I felt better. So I was on it for about 2 years, and one day at work I had trouble swallowing, and I was frightened. I didn't know what was wrong, and I tried to call. I couldn't get an appointment, so I went to an urgent care. And the doctor told me that he thought I was having a panic attack, and he gave me Ativan for 3 weeks. So I took it for the 3 weeks, and when the prescription ran out, I just was going crazy. I was raging, and I was just not right at all. And I went to the GP, and I thought I needed it. I didn't know I was in withdrawal. I thought that the drug was something that I needed. And my GP told me that the doctor had given me 3 times the dose that I should have had. But he still continued to give it to me. And fast forward about 10 years, I guess tolerance was coming, and I was very exhausted. I was an early childhood educator. He said, well, I said, can't you do anything? The fatigue is really bad. And he said, well, yes, I can give you Adderall. And so I started with the 15 milligrams. And it was very helpful. You know, life happens. I'm a full-time mom and working. So I went ahead, and eventually the Adderall got up to 60 milligrams a day. And for me, the Ativan I never really liked. I ran out over a holiday weekend one time, and I was just so ill. And I told my doctor about it, and he said, well, you know, Brenda, you know, withdrawal's withdrawal. You know, nicotine, alcohol is all the same. So I was always very careful. I go out of town and I get into a panic that I forgot to pack it. I pull off, look in my suitcase, make sure I had it. I felt handcuffed, basically. But the Adderall was very addicting, and it motivated me. It was the only thing that motivated me. So my doctor, all of a sudden, after 25 years, retired without notice. And the new doctors that took over, when I went in, I immediately knew there was a problem. They said, well, we're not going to be able to give you your prescriptions. You're going to have to go to a psychiatrist. And so I didn't know of a psychiatrist, and my sister threw out some name that she'd heard of over here in Virginia Beach. And so I got there, and she didn't give any qualms about prescribing me. I was on Abilify, my Zoloft, Adderall.
Can I interrupt for a second, just a second? Did you notice my Zoloft? You know what's going on here is the endearing relationship that develops between the drug and the patient, whether you start using the word my, which would mean they're sensitized to it. So it's not the effing Xanax or Ativan, it's the my.
Right, that's true. But but she scared me. She said, well, you know, recent studies show that long-term use of the Ativan can cause early dementia. And I was 61 at the time, and I said, oh, you know, that really scared me. And she said, well, you might want to cut back a little. And that's all she said to me. And so after I left, I thought, you know, I'm going to get off this. So I knew I should taper. I don't know how I knew that. But I tapered, and my case was so strange because I got down to 50% of what I was taking in 3 months. And I felt fine, felt great. I flew to Denver to my niece's wedding. And as soon as I got there, the first night I didn't sleep a wink. My eyes were wide open, and I just didn't feel right. I kept telling my husband, something's not right. So on the way back on the airplane, I developed this horrible taste in my mouth. It was just rancid. It was just, the worst. So I got home, took my dog to the vet that morning, didn't feel right, and on the way home I couldn't drive. I mean, the bottom just fell out. And the floor was waving in front of me, the walls, and I didn't know what was wrong, and I called my sister, and I said, something's wrong. She said, well, go take an Ativan. Go take one, and I did, and I felt better. So I went back to the doctor, and the doctor wasn't there anymore. I'd only seen her one time. And they didn't really know what was wrong. And they said, well, do you have a metal taste in your mouth? And I said, no. I said, this is really a horrible taste. And so I continued to work, and I found Dr. Bohan by the grace of God. And I went in, and he said, you're going to feel so much better when you get off these. And he switched me over to Valium, but I never came out of withdrawal. I was sick for 3 years and 2 months with my taper every day. And the taste in my mouth was, it sounds crazy. It sounds like, oh, big deal, you had a big bad taste in your mouth. Well, it was debilitating. I mean, I would go to bed and just cry to go to sleep so that I wouldn't have to suffer with it. So I got off, and I was on Adderall, of course, and Dr. Bohan, that was interfering, and so I tapered from that during my withdrawal. And I was the depression was just unbelievable. I mean, I couldn't leave my bed, I couldn't shower. My foot would be outside the bed, and I just wanted to step on the floor, to go into the shower. And I could not move. And so once I finished my taper, the mental symptoms were gone. The agoraphobia, I couldn't answer the phone, all of that was gone, even the depression. But then that's when the physical things started. And I developed a host of just muscle, tinnitus, head pressure, feeling like my head was in a vice. Luckily Dr. Bohan didn't have to hear about all that because I was finished, but I just wasn't expecting that. And so it's been 17 months next week. And I have had some good days. I had a great month, and I thought, I'm back. It was 15 months. I thought, this is great. But life stresses. The minute stress hits me for any reason, out of normal stresses, it'll send me back into a wave. And some symptoms have disappeared for good, and I thank God every day that my taste has improved immensely, maybe 80%. So here I am, and I just take it one day at a time. I know I'm going to heal. I've always known that. Once I finished with the depression, I realized that I was going to get better, and I joined. I didn't join Benzo Warrior until after I finished my taper. I was afraid to. I didn't want to hear any bad stories, but they did just wonderful, and it's just so wonderful to know you're not alone in these symptoms. Hey, has anybody had whatever a reaction to something? Oh yeah, I had that. Or I have terrible head pressure. I feel like my head's in a vice. Oh yeah, I had that, but I'm cleared up. It's better now. And so the group was very helpful. Dr. Bohan, I wouldn't be here without him. Just to have somebody believe me and be there, be my cheerleader for me. And so I'm forever grateful. And I think I've had some positive things that have happened. And I have to look at that. I think I'm a better person in a lot of ways, but it was a hell of a way to get there. But thank you.
Thanks a lot. Thank you.
Thank you.